having some kind of support, like you said, with Bianca, or even just your every week you have coaching, or every other week you have somebody there to support you and walk you through it, I think can be the game changer. For me, I had a coach. For me, it was a game changer.
All right, all right. Hi, Gina, and welcome to Staying Ageless. I'm really excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, for those of you who don't know Gina, she works at Raw Girl Coaching. She's like my ace, I would say, or like my nutrition buddy who's helping move our clients from whatever issue they're having to holistic wellness. And so, Gina, I'm really excited to have you on the show. I wanted to talk about dieting and weight loss and all that stuff, but let's start with talking about how did you end up becoming a certified nutrition specialist in the first place, and I guess what led you towards that career path.
Absolutely. Okay. So yeah, definitely a journey for me. I would say honestly, I feel like it kind of started in my childhood, because that's when I first had to address weight loss for myself. And for me, it was a lot of trial and error. I think I read a ton of stuff, tried a lot of different things, finally found something that worked for me at that time, and I was able to be successful. And that kind of led, to a lot of people asking me, how did you do it? What did you do? And then, I mean, for me, it just was always like a curiosity thing. I always was reading about it, trying to understand, the best method, or how to make it lasting, and how to make a lifestyle out of it. So that's where all my knowledge came from initially.
What were you successful with when you said you were successful?
For me, maintaining it, I was able to keep the weight off and not yo-yo and bounce back, and the way that I just became like a lifestyle for me. And it wasn't like, I mean, I became that person, like, oh, I was eating salads every day, but I wasn't on a diet. It was just the way that the method of like how I just started to eat. And then exercise was something. I was younger at that time, but that was like my first introduction to the gym in my teenage years, closer to college. But and that just stuck, and it was just something like, I guess people always seeing me like, oh, I'm going to the gym, or I was doing this, and so I kind of became known as that person, like the gym girl, and the healthy eater girl. And so for me, I think that's what it was. People saw how long it lasted. It wasn't temporary for me. And
Mhm.
then just asking for advice. So it didn't really necessarily start there. I think it was more like, for me, kind of like helping people here and there when you have a few tips. I hadn't obviously gone through the education of becoming a nutritionist. So
Right.
it led me to, I totally went to a totally different career, but still keeping all those lifestyle habits, and managing them through a television career that was quite demanding, and learning how to keep all of that and move into that type of a lifestyle. So from there, I think after working in the industry for over 10 years, I had a career change. It was a second passion for me. I still loved working in television, working as a producer, but that's when my knowledge kind of, I had a little bit more thirst for some more knowledge. So I went initially to school, back to school, to become a health coach. So I went and I studied at IIN, and the Integrative Institute of Nutrition, and that's where I got my health coaching license as a holistic health coach. And so from there, I was able to obviously work with people, and for me, I enjoyed it a lot, but I think I really wanted to be able to give my clients a little bit more and learn more on my end, and really get into the science of it to really understand and be able to explain it better. So then that, fast forward, led to me deciding to go back to school one more time for my master's, and that's brought me up to the point of becoming a certified nutrition specialist, going through the schooling and getting my license, and now practicing, which is just something I enjoy. So.
Super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And you've basically, I mean, you're kind of a weight loss specialist in that you worked at like every weight loss clinic, it seems like, known to man. I guess, what are some of the common, so I want to talk about pitfalls of fad diets for sure. But I guess I am curious is if you've seen any overarching themes of the clients that are doing these weight loss programs, because you've seen
Yeah.
so many different types of programs.
Yeah, I think what it is that my philosophy is I feel like almost pretty much any diet out there can work when you make the changes and you apply them to your lifestyle. It can work, but I think the pattern that I've seen a lot of people do is that they don't go through the maintenance. And I will say I made that mistake once in my lifetime where I didn't go through the maintenance, so I had to kind of drop back to dieting. And then I said to myself, I'd never want to do this again. And
And for you, what's the distinction between the diet and the actual maintenance?
so the diet really, it streamlines things. It puts a structure for you. And I think that's what really helps people fall into line of being able to manage, because they need to know, what am I eating today, when and what times and stuff like that. But I think coming out of that, maintenance is moving you more into a lifestyle, and that's where you're structured, but you're not like as rigid, and you've created, now you know what foods you really enjoy. Now you know what foods you can substitute some of the foods that were leading to the weight gain and bad
Mm,
habits. So
mm.
maintenance, I feel like, is the one of the most important things for sure.
I mean, it sounds like, I mean, I've had clients where it's like they're like, I just needed a break. And all of a sudden they just like stop doing everything for like a month and a half and then come back and they're like,
Yeah.
well, I've gained, but like I needed a break. I was on vacay. And I find it disturbing that you need a break from me. Like, I don't think you should need a break from your actual diet.
Yeah. No,
And
and
like,
I agree with that, because I think that's when you really have to ask yourself, like, this might be too rigid. This might be too far to the left, you know what I mean, to even
yeah,
really manage. And I think that's when you get into those extreme diets, the ones that just cut out everything. And I think that's, leading to that point. That's a good point, because I think that's where people fall short. A lot of the people that are returning and fall into that cycle start with these diets that eliminate entire food groups,
mm,
eliminate, I'm never eating sugar again. And I don't, that's not necessarily the most realistic thing, because we have natural sugars in our foods too.
yes.
So I find most of the people that say that I need a break or I need a cheat day, it's because they've eliminated way too much and not really understanding that there's a way to do this with incorporating everything, all the food groups, and still getting to your goal.
Well, how do you determine whether or not you're somebody who actually needs to? Because some people really do need to go cold turkey, meaning
Yeah.
they've binged or they've OD'd on something so much that, like, the only way to actually get their health to improve is to completely remove that thing now because they're so out of balance. But then I see what you're saying, because sometimes mentally that kind of like, omission freaks people out, and then they're like, "Oh my god, I can't eat this at all." And then they go binge on it because they're like, "Oh my god, this is not sustainable."
Exactly.
So it's like, how does someone figure out where they fall in that whole spectrum of like extreme cutting stuff out or not cutting stuff out?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a great point. And I think most people coming into dieting, they know where their weakness is, and they know what foods, I have a lot of people that'll come in like, I love bread. I have to have bread, or they have to have something sweet after a meal. So they think, right? So I
Mhm,
think
mhm,
what's
mhm.
important is finding a replacement, because I feel that's more sustainable. I mean, maybe you're not going to have the bread, but there's something comparable to that that can still satisfy you and still get you to your goal, so to
Right, I
speak.
have a
Yeah.
lot of bread eaters make my gluten-free almond flour bread, and
Right.
that's like giving them all kinds of life because it looks like bread, it feels like bread, It's just made from almond flour.
Yeah. And then the other wonderful invention to help people with my crunchy people that love their chips and their snacks and stuff is that air fryer is amazing
Mm,
because you
mm.
can really, that's a great way to make substitutions for things, make it healthier. You can make your own chips. You can make your own, crunchy things.
I have a question about that, honestly, because I really don't know. Like, is the air fryer really healthy? I mean, I think it is healthier because it's not being necessarily immersed in oil.
Right.
I guess that's the part that is.
Yeah.
But the actual cooking method, I'm like, does that still cause sort of free radicals? And that's, at least that's the way my brain works. Is I'm like, is
Right.
this going to make me age?
No. And I completely understand that. I think, through some of the reading that I've done, and I can't say this about every single air fryer, but I do know that there are some out there that work like a convection kind of like
Oven.
oven. Yeah, so that is more healthier. Like I said, I can't say every model is like that, but I do know some of the more, modern ones, the more recent ones, better way to say it, um, have that feature.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I know it can be helpful on that end to some
Mm,
people.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. Okay. And also in your experience working with weight loss clinics, I guess how did you handle people when they hit a plateau?
Yeah. So plateaus can be definitely, I feel like they're inevitable at some point sometimes for a majority of people. And that is because you need to shift things. When we keep things the same too long, your body gets way too used to it. It's almost like, you develop an immunity to it, so to speak, right? So that's the time to shake things up. So some of my clients, what I will do is I will do calorie cycling to some degree, where I'll take them up for a few days and then bring them back down. And
Mm,
then come, I mean, so your body isn't necessarily sitting in one place, because what happens is sometimes a lot of people, their body is like basically sitting there thinking like, are you ever going to feed me? I'm starving. I'm at this point where like you need to give me some more. So sometimes just even that one little change
mhm,
of increasing the calories, maybe a day or two a week for a
mhm.
couple of weeks, seems to do that trick. As
So
far
for
as
yours, it
breaking,
was a temporary. It was like a temporary uptick, and then
yeah,
you would bring it back down.
temporary uptake, and of course I'm speaking from a perspective of coaching somebody through that. So I think that that's important to really, you need to know where you need to be as far as like your calorie range and where
Mm-hmm.
to take it and how to bring it back down. I think some people kind of wing it too much, and they're not aware of like really what range are they losing in and what range are they flat.
Well, yeah, and I could go on and on about this for like an hour, right? Because I feel like so I had this similar thing where I would uptick people's calories, but I wouldn't bring them back down. Like the people that I was putting their calories higher. I found that they had hit a plateau because they were exercising
Mm,
like a lot more. And so now they're exercising at like an athlete level and they're eating this weird calorie restricted diet and their body can't even release weight anymore because they're not eating enough to fire the metabolism. So I would increase their calories and then all of a sudden they start losing weight again. And it was because their body needed more fuel. So a
yeah.
lot of people I think run into that where they don't even realize that,
Hmm.
oh my God, I'm under eating for the amount that I'm exercising, which is I think is a huge problem.
I
Um,
I totally agree with that, because I definitely want to speak on that part, because that's what I see a lot in the weight loss centers. Because what happens, you start to lose weight, you're feeling good, now you can be more mobile, and so you start to increase your exercise. And I think that is one small issue I do see in the weight loss centers a lot, where then you haven't told the doctor or the health coach or the nutritionist that you're working with that you've increased it,
mm,
so that they can do their part to raise it up too for you. But of course, if you're doing a kind of a DIY thing on your own, that would just be, something to definitely be mindful of, because that's, I feel like maybe 8 times out of 10 why somebody hits a plateau.
Yeah, no, for sure. But
Yeah,
I think it's good to communicate with health professionals, but I think that unfortunately, in my experience, I don't know about yours, but a lot of health professionals don't actually really understand that caloric restriction doesn't necessarily lead to weight loss.
yeah,
So I think that if even if a client went and was like, "Hey doc, I'm increasing my activity," they'd be like, "Great. Glad you're,
yeah,
because most people think less calories in, more exercise equals weight loss, and that's not how it happens at all. There's all this complicated stuff in between, including how does my body even metabolize and take these calories based on my gut flora? Like if my gut's jacked up, I could actually like take in those calories different than someone else. At least now
exactly.
there's all this research that's showing this. So I think that that's part of the problem. I think that there's still sort of this like 80s, early 90s
Thought
myth.
pattern, yeah. Less is more. And then I think that, but I mean, when you look at the pattern, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it with your clients too that are trying to lose weight. It's like they do get some weight loss from that calorie and then it
Right.
stops.
Then it stops.
Right. And that's your
And
plateau.
sometimes it goes back. Sometimes it yo-yos back
Right.
because they just kind of like they're just like I'm over it, and there's like you said there's no maintenance, so there's just like it's what I was dieting and then what I was doing before I dieted, and they just go right back
Yeah.
to what they were doing.
Or they do the flip side and then they start decreasing more. Well, then I got to eat less. Then I'm going to take this out. And I think that's that line where you see, okay, once you start doing that, you're going to throw yourself into that yo-yo cycle of having to,
Yeah.
you're up and you're down. And I think too, a thing with some people is like patience, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, because when you are working out and you're incorporating a diet, you could see your weight go up, but that could be due to your muscle gain.
Yeah.
Also, working out creates some inflammation, so you do retain water. So the people that weigh themselves before and after going to drive themselves crazy because
Literally bonkers. I have people who are like making themselves crazy with this daily weighing thing, and I'm like, please
yeah,
stop. And then the other thing, I mean, to the point that you were just making, to build on that too, is just like with the muscle mass, it's like at a certain point in someone's weight loss journey, I'm going to have them refocus from paying attention to their weight to paying attention to their body fat percentage. Because at the end of the day, we're here to promote health. And it's like if you are literally only focused on losing weight, you'll
hmm,
drive yourself insane, right?
yeah,
And then it's like, especially for a woman over 30, it's like if you want to look like Angela Bassett and be snatching your bikini at 60 something, you need muscle mass.
yeah. You
So
need to
that
pick
might
up the
actually,
weight.
you might actually weigh more, but you
Yeah,
will look better in your clothes and fit in smaller clothes. So I feel like a lot of women, especially, are just kind of like brainwashed to like think that like if I build muscle, I'm gonna be bulky or whatever. But it's like you should really like. I really wish they just put out a memo like build muscle now. You're 30.
yeah.
Like,
No, and I think and I think some people, yeah, they definitely get scared of that. And I can speak from my own experience. I will say I did bulk up, but
mhm.
here's the thing with that is that if you're patient enough, it will lean out,
Yes.
and it will come in your journey. I think people freak out too soon and they toss it to the side because I've also heard some people say, "Well, I'm going to lose the weight and then I'll lift weights after."
Afterwards, yeah.
But then you're kind of defeating the purpose because if you lift while you're losing, you're boosting your metabolism to help your body continue to lose weight.
To burn fat. Yeah.
And it's two different body types. You'll see somebody that's lost weight just on nutrition, and then you can see somebody that's lost weight with weights, with working out and including toning or muscle. And it doesn't have to be like you're lifting like 100 pounds, 50 pounds. I mean, it could be
Right.
even the light little handheld weights. You see more toning and you're going to see more burning. And yeah, for women over 30, for sure,
It's a big
you
thing.
need to
I'm
start
like,
then. Yeah.
yeah, start now.
Yeah. If you can.
Um, yeah, seriously. What other things have you seen that kind of get in the way of people being successful when they're trying to use diets to achieve their weight loss goals?
Yeah. I think Well, I mean, we hit the mark with the restriction. It's too low. I think one of the other things too is like, you know, this anticipation, like people want it right now, and they give
Mm,
up because they don't lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks or 6 weeks. And I think what some people have to understand, like, especially if you are a regular person working every single day, your lifestyle doesn't, it's not, requiring you to have a trainer, a nutritionist, and all these things all at once. Maybe you need to be a little bit easier on yourself. And I think people, in the sense of like, they just need to know that it's day by day, step by step, it's going to come. But I think that's one of the biggest things I see people do is like, I want it now, it didn't happen in a month, forget it. And then they move
mm,
on to the next diet,
mm,
and
mm.
then sometimes don't get it fast enough, and then you're moving. If you don't give it enough time and you keep diet hopping, that's another way to kind of just see somebody keep propelling into that cycle. So I do see that.
Yeah. Yes.
um I do see too sometimes people using too many processed foods to establish it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they rely on that way too much without incorporating some kind of whole food or natural, even if it's one meal for the day,
Mm-hmm.
when they come off of that, that day comes that you don't want to eat the shakes and the bars. And I've seen that pattern happen too. You become too reliant on packaged food. Yeah.
Yeah, those shakes and bars totally gross me out because when you really read the labels on a lot of them, it's like a glorified candy bar.
Yeah.
So it's sort of sitting in there making you feel like I'm good, but you're not. You're
Yeah.
not getting enough fiber to like eliminate properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to add to what you were saying too is just that like for me, like the period of time that I spent working a weight loss clinic really drove home for me like the how weight loss is so much a psychological thing. And I had this show up in so many different ways. I had clients who were dealing with I had a lot of clients who were trying to lose weight who had problems setting emotional boundaries,
Yeah.
and boundaries in their life. So they would have like, I remember this one client who had this really toxic job, and she had, she was giving money to her cousin every other week, and I was like, you need to say no. You need to like practice saying no. Shonda Rhimes' year of yes. I was like, this is your year of no,
Right.
child. Okay. So she started saying no to people. She actually ended up quitting her job because they were horrible to her, unfortunately. I didn't see her until maybe a month later, and she had dropped 15 pounds
Wow.
just from saying no to people. It was like the psychic weight was a part of what was keeping the weight on, which was
Yeah.
so interesting to me. So I found that very fascinating, and I remembered that because I was like, there's some sort of connection here there's a big connection between our emotions, also how we think, the psychological aspect. The other thing that I will say about the psychological aspect is I noticed that plateaus are sometimes completely
Yes.
psychological. So yes, there's the whole, okay, there might be someone who's over exercising or, over exercising needs to eat more. There might be like tweaks that are very technical, but I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about like you get to a plateau because your mind literally is like, and I've had clients say this to me like, I've been used to being, overweight my entire life. And now I feel like I'm getting close to my goal and I'm scared of who I'm going to become. I'm scared of what
Yeah.
other people, who I can hang out with. I'm
Yeah.
scared of what other people are going to say about me. And it's almost like a comfort zone thing, like to make other people comfortable now. My body's now created this plateau so that I can't reach my goal.
Yeah.
It's
Because
insane. It happens like a lot.
it does. And you hear, especially with my female clients that come in, you'll hear, I don't want to, I mean, minuscule kind of like bashing, I guess would be the word.
Mm.
And you, from people, I think sometimes sometimes other people aren't ready for you to be there either. And so they can instill that in you like, oh, you're losing so much weight, you're wasting away, or you don't feel good. I mean, I use myself as an example, to be honest with you. I remember there was a time when I was losing weight, and the accusation of, like, oh, she's doing it in a legal way, or oh, she might have a substance abuse
Oh
problem. Like,
my
you're losing
God.
so much weight. And I've actually had a client that had a similar experience. So I think as women, it can be extremely psychological, emotional. There's a lot of things that come with it because, yeah, that person might not be ready, and then also friends and family might not be ready. So their comments
Mhm.
too can drive somebody into starting to eat again. I had a client where she was told, like, oh, you're getting too thin, and so she
Yeah, I
started
had
to
one
eat
like
more.
that too,
Yeah.
and then it just, like, backfired. It, like, something happened in her brain where she just kinda freaked out and then went the other direction
Yeah.
again. Yep.
Yeah, and that can happen. So yeah, definitely that plateau, that whole thing, and even just the change, the transition. It's like both parties, it could be too much. So like, yeah, I think that's a great point because I do see that a lot.
Yeah, and that's part of why at Raw Girl Coaching, we deal with the subconscious roots of why of trauma and things that are getting in the
Hmm.
way of your programming. And we have an amazing therapist, Bianca DeGrode, who's back on staff now, who's working with some people. And I really like working with her in tandem with what I do because a lot of times too, there's programming from when we were kids.
Yeah.
Like we were taught to like eat ice cream and sweets when we're celebrating, or we're eating it when we're upset. And then we get like addicted to this cycle of like using that as
Hmm.
celebration or using it, to
Or it's a
feel better.
reward. It's a reward. Like, oh, you did really well.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Or you know,
Yeah.
or it could be, too. It's just that you're using it to, like, I guess, to celebrate all of it,
Mhm.
everything. Some people will use it too many
No,
times.
literally everything. They'll be like, "Oh my god, this just happened. Okay, let me go get an ice cream."
Right, right, right. Or I'm going to so and so's birthday party. So one of my things that I always tell my clients is that it's not your birthday. So when it is your birthday, we will. But I mean, it's little things like that that can help you along
That's
the way.
hilarious. It's not your birthday. It's
That's
her
okay.
birthday, but it's not yours.
Right. And when your birthday comes, we can figure out what will be best for you. But
That sounds
'cause
like something I would say to somebody.
but some of those things can lead you off track too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for some people, I think it is important to address because that one bite, it can be a trigger to something else. So I mean,
Right.
I joke
Or
about it,
just
but it is
lead them
serious.
down this path of like
Hmm.
over consuming that stuff. Yeah.
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 So you do have to be mindful of that, I think. But I mean, going back to the whole, emotion of it, I think too is like it is a huge thing to touch on because even I have people that will continue to shop for their old size. And
Mm,
so that mental thing. So I'm coming back to that because I think it is extremely important because weight loss and the food and the whole thing, I think it's definitely a mind. There's a huge part of the mind that plays a role in this, a huge
yes, for
part,
sure. For sure.
that triggers people. So having some kind of support, like you said, with Bianca, or even just your every week you have coaching, or every other week you have somebody there to support you and walk you through it, I think can be the game changer. For me, I had a coach. For me, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. On that note, for all y'all listening, if there's anyone out there who needs to lose weight, or if you know anyone who needs to lose extreme amounts of weight, Gina is a specialist in that, and she's at Raw Girl Coaching, so you can look her up,
Yeah.
therawgirl.com. And we also have a course that we developed together. Gina, do you want to tell them a little bit about it?
Yeah. So we have Detoxify My Life, which is a great program for somebody that wants to turn their lifestyle into the plant-based eating lifestyle. So I think, people come and they don't know where to start. They don't know what to eat. They don't even know necessarily what are all the benefits. So this is a course that we decided to create that would really help people make that transition and walk them through the first 30 days of it. So it's not just here's your meal plan, go eat this, but there's substance and education along the way to teach you. I mean, the first thing we start off with is clearing the four C's. We got to clear out the kitchen, right, and go from there. Um, so yeah, on that end, I think the program is a great way for somebody to make that transition that just doesn't know what to do and they need a full you have a lot of choices with our program. So we always we're going to start you with a cleansing kind of thing, but with smoothies, right, and move you into a 30-day menu that will set you up to literally detoxify your life. Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Y'all can check out Detox My Life. I'm like, I came up with this term. It seems like I can't even remember it, child. Detox My Life. I call it that because I really noticed that when you handle the nutrition aspects of your life, it starts to bleed into everything else. And so I have clients who get better jobs, better booze, all kinds of amazing things happen, but just because they paid attention to like getting their wellness together, which is why we love what we do. So go to stayingagelessuniversity.com if you're interested in checking that out. It's a self-guided program, but you also can actually pay to have Gina or I also walk you through the program if you want. There's a way to upgrade on the website. So go to stayingagelessuniversity.com.
Yeah.
All right, Gina, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yes. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Likewise. Let's do it again.
Yes, absolutely.